YouTube, what's going on, guys? It's Mike here, back with another video. I'm standing in front of the beloved fig tree. This is my brown turkey fig tree. As you can see, the leaves have fallen, and this is a great time to take some cuttings for next year, store those in the refrigerator, and to wrap the tree up for winter. So that's what we're going to be going over today. It'll be like a combination video where I'll show you guys how I wrap the tree. We'll tie it up first, wrap it, 2 layers with a vented top, and then with the cuttings that we take off of the pruning process, we'll go inside. The sun's going down here, and I'll show you guys how I prepare and store the fig trees for next spring. So let's get into it, guys. Okay, first things first, just a little bit of housekeeping. These are a nice pair of sharp bypass pruners. I've showed you guys these before. I use them pretty much all over the place on the homestead here. And what's really important is make sure that they're clean. You want to make sure that your pruners are clean. What I do is I'll just put some alcohol, just some rubbing alcohol on it. Isopropyl, this is 70%, so you get it from any drugstore. I like to just do that before anything because you really can pass on diseases and such to different trees or plants, even different species of plants. So it's good to just take care of that. I don't know exactly what type of diseases we are trying to prevent, but I know that this is a good thing to do, just like washing your hands when you get home from work or something. Take care of that. So without further ado, let's jump into here. I'm going to show you guys pretty quick. I'll grab the camera for you. I'll show you guys how I'm taking my cuts, what I'm doing, just to shorten this tree down. So the tree, you can see it's tall, it's straggly. It goes in all different directions. What we have to do is bring it in tight. We're going to tie it tight and then wrap it. So let's first shorten it down a little bit, and I'll take some of these wider branches just completely out, just so we can tighten it up. So pardon my blackberries here. I dug up some blackberries and gonna replant them somewhere, but okay. Okay, so we'll use this this branch here. It's a pretty good example. It's a smaller, shorter branch, probably about the width of a pencil. And I'm just going to show you what we're looking for in a cut. I've done previous videos on this, but I'm basically just going to come. This is about a 1 foot, maybe a little bit bigger. But I'm going to take the node right below this node because I want this node to grow next year. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just cutting that the way that is, so that I still leave a node there for new growth and leaves to come out of. Now, what we're left with here is a cut. Now, because we took it just above this growing node here, all of this can get cut back. We don't need this. We want to bring it right up to the next node right below that. So we cut that off. And now, if you guys can see, we have a leaf scar. We have a fruiting node, which would be a fig, and then a leaf node as well. Here's a good example. This looks like it would have been a fig, but it didn't turn out to be. So pretty cool stuff. So this is a great cutting that we'll wrap. We'll store this. I'll show you how to clean it later on, and then we'll get it in the fridge. So let me continue on. I'm just going to kind of run around, and I'm going to prune this tree back, and you'll see what it looks like when I get back. Okay, so as you see, I kind of just ran around real quick. I took a bunch of the height down, and I went around and took the real far lateral ones. I just took those off completely, make it easier to tie together. Now, what I didn't do that I said I was going to do was I left a lot of that density, those little tiny straggly branches that never see much sunlight in the growing season. I left those on. They're going to be tied up in the middle of the plant, and I'm going to try an experiment in the spring when things start to bud and open up. I'm going to take those off then and try to get some roots on them as they're opening up with the warm weather. But I still have a ton of cuts, good branch, good wood that we're going to use for wrapping up and storing in the refrigerator for next year's cuttings early spring before things start to bud. So we'll go over that later on in this video if you stay to the end. So anyway, this gets us ready for the next phase of the wrapping process, and that's tying it up. So the idea here, and you'll see, is we really want to put a couple different sections of rope around the tree and really bring it in tight. This wood it's dormant now, but it's still very flexible. So I mean, we could tie this pretty tight without breaking or damaging the wood. So I'll show you what kind of rope I like to use, and I'll show you how I go around and kind of tie it up. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so what I like to use is a more of a thicker type of rope. Now this isn't anything special. You get this, you know, you get this from Home Depot. It's pretty cheap. It comes in a big roll or a box, and I'll give you guys a little close up. It's like 3 or 4 different, you know, braided style. And it's a little bit thick. It's probably the thickness, I don't know exactly, but probably the thickness of a pencil. And the reason why you want to use a thicker rope is for when you're pulling down. If you use something thin like mason string, it might, you know, it might cause damage to the wood, just the abrasion. As you're pulling it, it might create some marks or mars on the wood, and you really don't want to do that. You don't want to damage the tree when doing this. But anyway, we want to tie it nice and tight. I'm going to walk around. I'll do that real quick, and then I'll check back in with you guys when I have it wrapped up tight. Okay guys, so there it is. It doesn't look pretty, but it's tied together, it's tight, it's upright, and it's ready for the next step. What I had to do, and this wasn't my plan originally, was I had to kind of make a couple bundles like ponytails. If you could see, I kind of bundled this one up here, that one up there, those 2 in the back, tied them tight together, and then brought them all in as groups. Going around was just not going to happen because of the sheer size, footprint that this fig tree takes up. So if you guys have fig bushes or really wide spreading, sprawling trees, you could do it. You could try it like this, where you just kind of bundle up sections that kind of look like they go together, and then once they're all bundled, use those wraps like I did to kind of pull it all together and in. It doesn't have to look perfect. You're going to cover it anyway. So this is where we're at. It's tighter. It's in the shape that I want it, and yeah, that looks good to me. So let's get on to the next step, and that is to wrap it in burlap. Burlap is a great insulator. That's really what we're using it for. It's not going to protect your plant from the moisture or things like that, but it's just going to keep the wind chill off and give it that extra little bit of a layer to protect it from the freezing cold. So this is just free twill burlap. It's nothing special. I picked this up from Home Depot. You can get it wherever you want. You can even reuse stuff that you've already used. It's pretty all-purpose. I would just go for something organic. It really doesn't matter. It might break down, fall apart. So I always go for like an organic version. This way, if it does end up in the soil, it'll break down, but you guys can use whatever you want. It doesn't have to be. Basically what we're doing here is we're just wrapping this around the tree in layers until you have it completely covered. And then we'll go on to the last and final step, which is a tarp. So let's go ahead, let's get this wrapped up now, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like after I do a couple wraps with burlap. All right, so there it is. It's burlapped. It's not pretty. It's not perfect. There's some gaps here and there. I ran out of the burlap. I had a nice 2 rolls of that stuff. I went around twice, and it's covered. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just another extra layer. If you have a much smaller tree, you could probably get around it a couple more times. As far as the bottom goes, we're gonna pile up wood chips to kind of create a nice barrier on the bottom. So don't go crazy with making sure that the burlap is, you know, touching the ground. The key is just kind of keeping the bulk of the tree protected from that wind and that cold. So this is what I got. The top is open on purpose. There's a complete open gap. I want to vent. I want some airspace in there. I want to be able to get a lot of humidity and moisture out so we don't run into mold and condensation issues throughout the season. Because don't forget, the sun still comes up and goes down in the winter. As that cool morning frost or dew kind of burns off, you want to be able to vent that humidity out of the top of the enclosure here. So that's that. There's your burlap. Now that's for the final, and I think the most important layer is the tarp. So what I have here is coming around on this side now, I have a heavy duty tarp. This is something that you pick up from Home Depot as well, or any big box store, Amazon, wherever you guys get stuff like this. And now this is, like I said, the most important layer. You want to really make sure it's wrapped nice under your tarp. So get a big tarp. This is a 10 by 12. So I'm hoping that this is big enough. If it's not, I'll even go out and get a bigger one. So let's see what it does. We'll wrap it around the fig tree here, and we'll try to make a nice tight enclosure. If not, I'll go get a bigger tarp, or I might have one laying around. Again, it won't look pretty, it won't look great. The key is just keeping that moisture, that freezing water, rain, snow off of your tree. So yeah, let's get this thing wrapped up. All right, guys, so there you go. I actually ended up using 2 tarps. I had an extra one laying around from last year, which if you get the heavy duty tarps, they'll last a couple years. So, you know, we're only using them for the winter. The sun doesn't really beat down on them so hard, and that's what really degrades these things. It's just the sunlight and the heat. The cold doesn't beat them up as bad, although they do degrade over time. But this one's from last year, worked out great. So I have the first one underneath. It didn't make it around all the way, so I had this one, and I just wrapped it around where the other one didn't meet. So there's no open areas besides the top. If you can see, we still have some fig tree poking out. But like I said, that's for ventilation. So the most important thing is making sure that the tree's covered with this outside layer, this tarp. The burlap, it's a good extra layer, but this is the most important one. This is what's keeping the weather off of your tree. Also, what's important to note is that you have plenty of tarp on the ground. What we're going to do next is, well, we're going to wrap it up and tie it real tight with rope to keep the tarp on from blowing away. But also, we're going to cover the bottom of this with wood chips, just regular wood chips, the same stuff that I use as a mulch layer anyway in the garden. This way in the spring when I pull it off, just all blends right in. But anyway, that's very important. So that'll be our final step, is coming around the bottom and just layering a good little mound of wood chips up against the tarp to keep the wind from getting underneath, and also keeping the tarp in place into addition with the rope. So there we have it. This is what it'll look like, and then I'll show you guys the final touch on the top. We'll just take a bucket and just put it right on the top once it's all tightened in. So let me run a rope around it, and I'll show you guys what it looks like toward the final step and what me and my wife will be seeing for the whole winter. So stay tuned. All right, guys, there we have it. It's wrapped up. We have enough of the ground clearance, or the tarp is on the ground, so that we can add some wood chips on top of that later on. Might do it today. We're losing daylight here. Might do it tomorrow. But the final touch does have to go on. It's just like putting the angel on top of the Christmas tree. You got to do it. So anyway, I'll show you guys what I do. So I left the gap up so that I can actually reach down in here and feel the fig tree. You can actually see it poking up top there. There's air, there's a gap down there, but we don't want rain and ice to go down, but we want air and humidification and condensation to come out and kind of escape. We don't want a big moldy tree when we open this thing up. So what I do is I kind of just take the bucket and I just stuff the excess tarp in there, and I'll just put it up top like that. All right, guys, so that's the wrap job. It's all done. Last step is to put the wood chips around the base here. So I'll probably just get the tractor, get a couple scoops of wood chips, dump them on top of this. I think we have just enough daylight to do that. So let's go ahead, let's grab that, and let's get these wood chips laid down. All right, guys, and there you have it. That's the mulch right there. Might have went a little overboard with how much mulch I put down, but I like to mulch this whole area anyway every winter, so this will just make it a little bit of an easier job. But yeah, what this does is 2 things. One, it keeps the tarp down at the base so the wind doesn't blow it off when we have some good strong winds in the winter. And 2, it keeps those cold, chilly winds from blowing underneath and kind of defeating the purpose of the tarp, keeping that cold weather off of the fig tree. We had a little bit of rain. I had to run inside. Now we're really losing sunlight if we weren't before. So let's wrap this thing up. That's the end. That's the final product. You see it's all wrapped up with the bucket on top for ventilation, and we got our mulch layer down. So I hope this video was helpful to you guys. If you want to stick around, keep watching, and we'll jump inside and I'll show you guys how I prepare my fig cuttings for the refrigerator and to hold them over in the winter until the spring. Let's go inside and do that now. All right, guys, here we are. We moved to the kitchen. It got really dark outside. You could see pitch black out there. It's only like 5 o'clock, which is crazy, but you know, that's winter for you. Anyway, my wife graciously donated the kitchen so we could film the rest of this video. And this is kind of a part of the process that's better in the kitchen anyway. You really don't want to do this outside. We're going to be sterilizing some cuttings. So these are those same cuttings that we took outside. It's the you know, the 8 to 10 to 12 inch cuts, at least 3 nodes on each one. More is better, but you know, if you only could do 3, you can only do 3. We're going to be using bleach. We're going to do a bleach dilution solution to sterilize our cuttings, and we're not going to rinse the cuttings after we you know, wipe them down. We're going to use one of these brushes. I actually bought this new. I didn't want to use one that, you know, we use in the kitchen. It's firm, but it's not hard. It's more like a medium brush. So it's not going to like be abrasive and actually like remove or cut the bark of the cuttings, but it's going to you know, help kind of remove remove any sediment, or really what we're aiming for is getting rid of mold spores here. That's why we're using a bleach solution, because mold spores will grow in the refrigerator while you have this stuff, and you'll have a big white plume of mold when you go to open these in the spring. So basically we're just bleach, brush, bucket, paper towels, so that you don't get, you know, murdered by your wife. But if you don't care about getting things a little wet, then these aren't necessary. And saran wrap, and that's what we're going to be putting each cut nice and tight in after they're done and dry. Being dry is very important. So basically we're using warm water, and we're doing a 1 to 9 ratio of bleach to water. So it's 1 part bleach, 9 parts water. And now I did a little calculation because I only have a measuring cup. There's 16 cups in a gallon of water, and I don't think we're going to need more than a gallon of water to do this. Maybe 2 gallons. We'll see when I put a gallon in the bucket how high it comes up. I want to be able to submerge the cut under the water and kind of brush it while it's under there in the bleach solution. So we make sure we get 100% of that surface area, and we kill all the mold spores that could potentially be living dormant on our cuts right now. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put 16 cups of water in here, and then I would do you know, I'll do the math and figure out how many cups of bleach it is, but I'll probably end up doing 2 gallons of water in the bucket, and then I'll find out the ratio. So I will be right back. Let me do that little bit of math real quick, and yeah, we'll get started on this, so stay tuned. Okay, so I'm back. I just did a quick little calculations here. So basically I did 1 gallon of water in the bucket. Not sure if you can see that, but it was 1 gallon in there. That's 16 cups to make 1 gallon, right? So the first thing I had to do was convert gallons to ounces. So I got 128 ounces in 1 gallon. And then to get a 1 to 9 ratio, you divide it by 10, because you add 1 plus 9 to make 10. By dividing 128 by 10, you get 12.8 ounces. So that would be my ratio right there. You get 12.8 ounces of bleach per 128 ounces of water to make the 1 to 9 ratio of bleach to water solution. And let's pour our 1.6 cups of water of bleach into our solution, or into our water here. So without getting this on my clothes, I'm going to just put, that's 1 cup, and then 0.6. So we're just going to do another half a cup, a little bit more. We'll call that good right there. Okay, so that's our 1 to 9 bleach and water solution. I just mix it up a little bit. Now I'm pretty sure this will stay in my clothes. So what I'm going to do is take off this this flannel that I have here, and we'll get right into scrubbing these things down. I'll show you guys how I do that. So basically, just put some gloves on. I don't know if this solution will really hurt you, but it'll definitely make your hands smell like bleach, which I'm not a fan of. So a little bit of personal protection equipment. You go ahead, you just take one of your cuttings, submerge it in the water there, give it a little scrub down, just abrasion, nothing too crazy. Another dip, And then I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna call that good to go. We don't wanna rinse this with water. We want the bleach solution to dry. That's what's gonna prevent the mold. And we'll just put that on the, right there on the paper towel. And then literally rinse and repeat. So that's about all there is to it. If you guys can do dishes, then you can sterilize your fig cuttings. So that's it. I'm gonna do all of these, get them on the paper towel, and then I will check back in with you guys to show you how to saran wrap them, and then we'll put them in the fridge. So it's that easy. I will check back in. All right, guys. So once you've done the cleaning and disinfection, you should end up with a bunch of sterilized cuts. Now this is where it gets to the point where you're good after this point. You really don't have to do too much more to these. They're pretty much ready. I mean, even the sterilization process, we're fighting mold, and that's the number one, like, death rate or failure point to doing this process is you get mold in the refrigerator due to moisture and condensation in a closed environment like a Ziploc bag here. So what some people do, and this is what people will send clones or cuts out with, is they'll saran wrap each individual cut. What that's doing is a couple of things, primarily preventing the cut from spreading any kind of mold bloom if it were to happen. So for example, I take 10 of these cuts like this, I pack them all into saran wrap, I put them in a bag. If one of these blooms with a bunch of mold, then it won't infect, or it'll contain all from getting into the rest of the clones here, or the cuts here. So that's one thing. Now, you know, it's a lot of cuts, and it would take a lot of saran wrap to do this, but I'll show you how I just do one. I just take off a piece of the saran wrap like that. I go and I lay one of the cuttings down in it, and I just very simply just roll it right up. Couple rolls, and then I'll tuck the ends in, and I'll finish it off kind of like that. So like, I don't go too crazy. I mean, I've seen when you're shipping them, I've seen people pack them real tight. Sometimes they even vacuum seal them, which is the best. If you can do that, if you have a vacuum sealer and you're willing to use all of the special vacuum seal wrap for this, by all means, you'll probably have a greater success rate. In my application, now this is something that you guys can do too. You could either just push all these into a Ziploc bag, roll them up, maybe do half, so that if one of them gets mold or something happens to one of them, you have the other one. What I'm gonna do today, and this is just, you know, it just makes more sense to me, is I'm gonna group maybe 6, 7, 8 of these together because I have so many. I'm just gonna take a nice handful like this, stack them up, and then I'm gonna roll all these together. So what this is doing is two things. One, it's getting the job done quicker because, you know, everybody likes to get things done. I'm wrapping them up, and also it's just, it's giving me a better chance than just sticking them all in the bag. If there is mold on these, or if something happens to these, I'm only gonna lose 5 or 6 as opposed to the whole batch. So these are a little bit longer. I'm gonna just wrap the ends up and call that pretty much good. I'm just gonna do this with all of them. And then I'll put them all in Ziploc bags. I'll probably do 2 or 3 Ziploc bags just to give me that greater or less risk of having a mold fungus bloom, because that's what happened to me last year. Is the mold came, it took over a lot of my cuts. I was able to get some out of it, but I lost a lot to that mold. And you know, you could rinse them off at the beginning of the spring. It's best if you just don't go that route. So just like that, I just wrap them up. Nothing pretty, nothing fancy. That's like maybe 5 or, I didn't even count, 10 cuts in there. And I'm gonna do that. I'll just bundle them all up, just like how I wrap the fig tree, just little bundles, and then bring them all together. But yeah, so I'm gonna wrap all these, and then I'll show you the final step where these are gonna live until the spring. So bear with me, let me get these all wrapped, and then I will check right back in. All right, there they are. That's all of them. I got a bunch of bundles here. Didn't count how many were in each one. A couple singles like that. And yeah, this is really it. So now the last step here is just to throw them in a bag. Try to push as much air out of the bag as possible. The air is what, you know, causes a lot of the issues. And that's really it. Let's see how they fit. Okay, so once you have them all wrapped up, you just put them in a Ziploc bag like this. You want to try to push as much air out of them as you can. So we'll get this one started here. Probably go ahead and call that good. All right, guys, so that's it. What you see is you know, the end of the video here. That's how I wrap them up. You don't really have to do all this. So I know what it looks like. It's a lot of plastic, a lot of waste, and I agree with you. But you know, in the past, I've done it where I just kind of take the cuttings, I throw them in a bag or a bucket or whatever. I throw them in the fridge, and they do get really moldy throughout the winter, or if they'll dry out if you don't have them sealed up. So it's like one or the other. This is what I think is the best alternative to not get mold, and if you do, it's isolated to just a couple cuts and not your whole batch. So it does look like a lot of waste, and honestly, I'm looking for better options as well. So leave a comment down below if you guys have something better than this. But for this winter, this is how they're going in my fridge, and they'll stay there until the spring. So thanks for coming along on this one, especially this last little bonus clip of the actual cleaning and wrapping of the cuttings, the prunes that we took earlier today. So yeah, guys, leave a like, comment, and I will see you on the next one. See you later.